Board of Education meeting for today, August 5th, 2025. If we could please all rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Would the district clerk be so kind as to take a roll call?
Adam Smith.
Present.
Julie Epstein.
Here.
Sandra Alvarez.
Not present.
Deborah Brooks.
Not present.
Rachel Gilliard.
Here.
Nanette Melkonian.
Not present.
Jessica Milwani.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the August 5th, 2025 agenda. Is there a second? Ms. Epstein, all in favor? 4-0. The agenda is adopted. I'd like to make a motion to recess to executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person. Is there a second? Ms. Milwani. Like literally like about to say Jess. All in favor? 4-0. And while we're in there, can you guys check? There's like a weird like back echo coming out of the microphone. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Just quick question, when we do the emotional note about the policy. Yes. Do you want me to come over to him, or do you want me to do it in
I think you need to ask Shannon what would be the best
Okay.
photograph.
Thank you.
That would be more enthusiastic.
Okay.
Of course. Have a good time. Joel? Oh, Jessica, your microphone is on. Your microphone is on.
Testing, testing.
I'm going to shut this one off too.
Testing. Testing.
Can I have everybody's attention, please? We're going to resume the meeting. I'd like to make a motion to reconvene in public session. Do we have a second? Ms. Epstein, all in favor? 4-0, we are reconvened in public session. Would the district clerk please take another roll call?
Adam Smith,
Present.
Julie Epstein,
Here.
Sandra Alvarez, absent. Deborah Brooks,
Absent.
Rachel Gilliard,
Here.
Nanette Melconian,
Absent.
absent, and Jessica Milwani.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I hope you've all been enjoying a relaxing summer with family and friends. Tonight marks a special moment as we officially welcome our new superintendent, Dr. Posse, to his first board meeting. Although Dr. Posse officially began his tenure on August 1st, we all know he has spent much of July meeting with stakeholders across the district and working closely with Dr. Shields to ensure a thoughtful and seamless transition. We are grateful for that collaboration and deeply appreciative of the time he has already invested in our community. Just a couple of weeks ago, the board had the opportunity to spend a full day with Dr. Posse as part of our board development. It was a productive and energizing session, and we look forward to continuing that important work together as we shape our goals and priorities for the upcoming school year. Although it may feel like summer has just begun, I know it does for me, the first day of school is just around the corner. As always, our dedicated teachers, staff, administrators, and our incredible custodial and maintenance teams are hard at work preparing our buildings and classrooms to welcome students in September. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and enjoy the rest of your summer. With that, I will turn to Dr. Posse for his first report of the superintendent. You are correct.
What?
At this time, we are going to ask that our district clerk administer the oath of office to our superintendent, Dr. Posse.
Okay, Dr. Posse, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Superintendent of Schools
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Superintendent of Schools
at the Port Washington Union Free District,
at the Port Washington Union Free School District,
Town of North Hempstead, Nassau County, Port Washington, New York,
Town of North Hempstead, Nassau County, Port Washington, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Dr. Posse.
Okay, well, now that we have that out of the way, if you could please go for the report of superintendent.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. It's an honor to present my first superintendent's report here in Port Washington. I want to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude for the warm welcome I've received over the past few weeks. Since my appointment to this role, I've been focused on meeting people and hearing perspectives on the district. I've spent time in our buildings, met with principals and district leaders, visited with our facilities and operations teams, and sat down with union leadership. These early conversations have given me valuable insight into the strengths of our district and the deep pride our community holds in its schools. On Friday afternoon, I sent a letter to the school community introducing myself and sharing that I'll be launching a listening tour this fall. My goal is to meet with students, families, teachers, staff, and community members to engage in meaningful conversations about our shared future. These sessions will provide a space to reflect on what's working well, where we can grow, and where we should focus our collective efforts in the years ahead. I plan to host 4 in-person sessions, 2 focused on the elementary level, 2 on the secondary level, with both morning and evening opportunities to accommodate different schedules. In addition, I'll launch a thought exchange to ensure that those who cannot attend in person will still have the opportunity to share their perspectives. Please be on the lookout for more information on these sessions as we move into the fall. Tonight, I look forward to updating you on several important preparations for the start of the school year, including elementary enrollment projections and class size, an update on our migration to Infinite Campus, and an overview of preparations for our transition to a new transportation provider. I'd like to begin with elementary class size and our recommendation for the allocation of additional FTEs. In a moment, I'll ask Dr. Shields to walk you through the details, but first I want to provide some context. As part of the 25-26 budget process, Dr. Shields shared that 3.0 FTEs were being held in abeyance to support one of several potential needs: elementary class size, a middle school guidance counselor, or enrollment-driven needs in high school financial literacy courses. After careful consideration, we are recommending that all 3.0 FTEs be allocated to the elementary level. We reviewed class size data using the lens of the board's policy and regulation, with particular attention to the optimal ranges outlined in the class size regulation. We also considered opportunities to promote greater parity across schools and grade levels. And through this analysis, we're recommending the addition of a fourth FTE beyond what was originally planned in the budget. This will allow us to maintain class sizes closer to the optimal ranges for this year. We're able to fund the additional position through savings from unanticipated retirements. We believe this recommendation strikes the right balance for this year, given the enrollment and available resources. That said, future budget cycles may present different challenges, and staffing decisions must always be made with care and a thoughtful understanding of the broader educational program we offer our students. So at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Shields to walk the board through the specific projections and staffing recommendations. Dr. Shields.
Thank you, Dr. Posse. So I'll first start with the big picture. We received an updated enrollment report this past Friday, and at this time we have 5,131 students pre-K to 12. Our incoming kindergarten class has reached 347 students, which is what we'd projected. We do anticipate there'll probably likely be some more enrollments over the next month. As Dr. Posse was saying, the image that you see here on the screen is something that was shared with the school board recently, as recently as yesterday. And what it does is it describes for you in detail how many sections there are in each grade level at each elementary school. We have allocated 4 sections to the 113 sections that we had this past school year, bringing us up to 117 general education sections at the elementary level. We've added them specifically at Guggenheim's 3rd and 4th grade, Seuss's grade 3, and Salem's grade 4. As you recall from our conversations during the budget cycle, it was important that we stay below the cap by at least 1 student. That was one of our targeted goals that we've been able to maintain so far. And also bring down the overall class size average. And you can see that the range per school is between 18 and 20 students on average per class. We said that this was a focus during the budget cycle. And I think we've put in that good effort to show the realization of that impact as it impacts our entire elementary level. So I'm open to hearing any questions that the board might have at this time.
I'm going to start with a comment. And I want to say, first of all, that I thank you, Dr. Shields in particular, because I know how hard you worked on this this summer, as well as Dr. Posse, who I believe you became involved in this process even early in July with the current staff at that time. And I want to say, first of all, that I'm very glad that I know this is a departure from the past, that we're actually sharing this document publicly before the school year. And obviously, it's good when it's a year when we have really good numbers to show, but I think that we can stray away from our past practice of kind of shrouding this document in secrecy and really showing the community what the allocations are and help explain to them the thought process, and the board as well, frankly. I think that just so the community understands, you guys really looked at this document, both this table horizontally and vertically, to really make sure that there is parity between third grade across the district where possible, and that the allocations within the schools make sense as well. You thought about classrooms, you thought about special areas, partial FTEs for phys ed, et cetera. So this is not just as simple as we need to add another class for Guggenheim third grade. We have to make sure we have a phys ed FTE available for that, et cetera. So I'm really happy where this landed. We did better than the 1 minus that we were hoping for. And I think it was really fortuitous that those retirements happened, we were able to add that additional FTE. So really, I don't want to go into, if you guys are making the recommendation, I'm behind it. Let the other trustees speak for themselves, but I'm really proud of the process of how this went this year as compared to the past. So I thank you both very much for that and spearheading it.
We appreciate that feedback. And as you said, we did look not just within a school, but we looked across all 5 schools per grade level to see, are we creating equity across all 5 schools? And that was, a very strong focus of our process.
Yeah, and I think it shows, and if one school has 22 and one has 21, obviously we can't control the enrollment, but if we can have, I think really we're within 2 kids in every single grade across the district, I have never seen this much parity, so well done. Does anyone else want to add anything? Questions? Ms. Gilliar?
Really just a thank you. I know there's been a lot of agitation towards you from many of our stakeholder communities over the past year or so, well, towards you and towards us, honestly. But I think it's really wonderful to see the culmination of all the work behind the scenes, because I know all along the way you were looking at how do we do what the ideal is here. And I actually think this accomplishes more than I was actually even expecting we were going to be able to get to, because obviously it's not our decision, so none of us could say, well, we really think this is going to happen, but I really could see in your eyes that something was going to happen. This outdoes what I expected. It's interesting, when we were getting a lot of comments from parents all year, I had a parent who is also a teacher say to me, I can't say this out loud, but I find it almost offensive as a teacher, all these comments about how teachers can't handle these classrooms, because we're teachers, of course we can handle this classroom. And I see that comment, right? Because these teachers did handle these classrooms with 25 or 26 kids in. Those teachers still did a great job, but to me, what this gets us to is you have that amazing teacher in the classroom, and then you allow them to spread themselves a little less thinly, and of course, that's going to be a benefit to both the teacher and the student and the overall experience in the classroom. So thank you so much for all your hard work, because I think this is going to have a real impact in our elementary schools.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I will reiterate the thanks. Not only did this approach achieve parity, which I really appreciate, but it also, I noticed, keeps all of our sections within the optimum range in every grade on average, which I think is commendable. So thank you for your thoughtful approach to this. In the last budget process, the prioritization across the newly added FTEs was elementary class size, to sort of manage elementary class size first, with a subsequent focus on middle school guidance counselor and a financial literacy teacher in the high school. I am personally very comfortable with the recommendation and what's presented here, and I would just sort of like to put it out there for the board that I hope we will continue the discussions and the prioritization around secondary level mental health and financial literacy moving forward. But I am very pleased to see this, particularly the focus on the optimum ranges, so thank you.
Ms. Epstein is going to tell us not to get too comfortable with these numbers as enrollment continues to grow. But let's hear it. Lay it on.
I wasn't going to say that. I just wanted to, put the caveat out there that it's only August 5th and everyone can still move into their homes. But yes, thank you very much for all of the work that you have done. And I echo exactly what Mr. Smith said, especially about, I know that every year that all of this is looked at in the same manner and mechanism. But the transparency with which we are presenting it, I think I appreciate that it was brought to us through the budget season. And I agree that this is not the first time we'll have this conversation. We'll continue to have it this month, but we will also, I look forward to the board having this conversation, and much to Ms. Melwani's point, not just for enrollment's sake, but we know financial literacy is going to have to be a priority. Mental health we can make a priority, and we look at our goals. When we as a board start talking in September about our goals and determining if can we maintain this, because as Dr. Posse said in his statement, budgetary constraints, right, may prohibit us, but we need to decide if this is going to be a budgetary priority for us as we, look forward into the following school year. And I look forward to those conversations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shields.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shields. So a few more updates. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Feeney to provide an update on our district-wide migration to Infinite Campus.
Good evening. Very happy to provide our monthly update to our Migration to Infinite Campus. We remain on track with this transition. One of the big points the last few weeks has been the parent portal activation. That continues to grow with strong participation at Weber, 67%, Guggenheim, 70%, and Schreiber, 59% of parents having activated their parent portal. Our scheduling is progressing very well. Schreiber schedules are expected to be available next week, Weber by the end of the month, and elementary schedules on or around August 21st. Teacher access will begin next week for the secondary and the following week for the elementary teachers. And secondary students will have access beginning next week as well. There are key trainings undergoing, having taken place and undergoing. The PPS staff was trained back on July 23rd. We have upcoming sessions for secondary attendance on August 14th, the teacher coaches at the end of the month, clerical Q&A August 28th, and a teacher refresher on Convocation Day. E&L and clerical trainings also being coordinated for early September. Online registration, annual updates are being processed by central registration, and the UPK portal will open to selected families next week. We really want to thank, once again, the work and the efforts of our technology team, and due to that, we're in a very strong position heading into the start of the year.
Thank you, Dr. Feeney. Next, I'd like to just invite Ms. Manuel to provide an update on transportation.
Good evening, everyone. So as you know, we switched our contract transportation provider this year. We've been meeting with Beacon Mobility / Huntington Coach every week to make sure that we're on target. One thing I'm not sure if everybody is aware of, we used to have a credit union in a mobile location by Sousa. We've converted that into an office space for our transportation drivers. So they actually have a place to do training and stuff there. We also, you'll see our school buses that the district owns will be there instead of on Campus Drive. So we're working with getting fencing and security cameras there as well. But we think that'll be a lot more efficient for the drivers and just for logistics. So with Beacon Mobility, they have 100% acquisition of all the vehicles. They have all of the drivers trained. We have several Pierce drivers that have signed on with us, so the public will be seeing some familiar faces, just with more safety protocols of training. They have a strong focus on safety. Ms. Mora, our Director of Transportation, just yesterday took their safety officer and other representatives from Beacon Mobility to all 7 of the buildings so they could see the flow of traffic and how dismissal will be working. So people may see them on site at the beginning of the year, making sure that things are flowing safely. Also, Ms. Mora, on August 28th, she has a mandatory annual safety meeting with all of our drivers plus all of the contract drivers. Also, parents will be seeing Beacon Connect. It's a parent app, and that will be going out with the bus passes. So we'll no longer be using the Stop Finder app. This is something that Beacon Mobility provides at no additional expense to the district, and they'll be able to answer any questions from the public very quickly. And again, our technology team has been instrumental in making sure that everything will flow smoothly. So we look forward to that. So a reminder will go out to parents via Parent Square, letting them know to look for the app and for the email. So.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any questions?
No, that was very clear.
Thank you, Ms. Manuel. So turning now to this evening's agenda, there are 2 items that I'd like to draw the board and community's attention to. We will soon open the public hearing on the Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct. And at that time, I'll ask Dr. Feeney and Dr. Baer to present an overview of the proposed revisions. These include updates to align with the board's previously adopted dress code policy and modifications to the section on student use of electronic devices, reflecting recent changes enacted through the New York State budget process. In previous meetings, the board has engaged in thoughtful discussion about this policy, with particular focus on student cell phone storage. The revised code recommends that cell phones be stored in either a student's locker or backpack. Dr. Baer will provide further context for this recommendation, including the rationale for explicitly referencing lockers, an item that generated questions during our last meeting. She'll also review the proposed enforcement framework, including a tiered system of consequences for policy violations. But before concluding my report this evening, I'd like to draw your attention to one final item. I'm recommending a change in title for Dr. Shields to Deputy Superintendent. This recommendation reflects Dr. Shields' long and notable service to the district, as well as the scope of leadership responsibilities he currently holds. As I've shared previously, I'm grateful to Dr. Shields for his support during this leadership transition. His institutional knowledge and historical perspective have provided helpful insights to me as we seek to build a bridge between the district's past success and the future we aspire to create together. In this role, Dr. Shields will continue to oversee his current portfolio while also serving as a trusted advisor and thought partner in advancing district priorities, supporting staff and community relations, and leading special projects as needed. This title change formally recognizes Dr. Shields as the senior-most member of my cabinet and acknowledges both his contributions and the important role he continues to play in our ongoing work, and it is my absolute privilege to recommend this change. As we prepare to welcome students and staff back for the start of the school year, I want to thank the board once again for your trust and support. I'm excited for the work ahead, and I'm confident that our collective efforts will help ensure a strong start for the district students. Thank you, and that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Posse, for that thorough report, and to the assistant superintendents as well. At this time, we're going to open for our first community comment of the evening. As is the custom, we ask that you state your name, do not make any personal attacks, and keep your statement to 3 minutes. If you have any questions in your statement, we will endeavor to answer when appropriate at the following board meeting under old business. I want to note that, as Dr. Posse alluded to, we have our public hearing for our Code of Character and Conduct, Culture, Character, and Conduct, and we will be having a separate opportunity for community to speak on that particular topic during that public hearing. So we ask that we limit the community comments during this component not to that topic of the Code of CCC. So I know Ms. McLean would like to speak, and if anybody else has additional comments to add, we can certainly have you come on up. So go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Regina McLean. Is it on? No? Hi, good evening. I thought I turned it on. I know.
No, give it a tap.
All right, good evening. Regina McLean, I'm the president of the Port Washington Teachers Association. I represent over 500 dedicated and caring professionals. We're teachers, counselors, nurses, psychologists, speech pathologists, and social workers. We want to formally welcome Dr. Posse as the new superintendent of our schools, and the PWTA looks forward to continuing to work collaboratively with the superintendent so that we can achieve great things for our students and our schools. We also wanted to publicly thank all of the administrators who were involved in addressing the class size issue at the elementary schools by allocating more resources to the elementary schools. As many of you know, we, the PWTA, have been speaking about class sizes in our schools for the last 7 years because we believe that in a district like Port Washington, our class sizes should have been lower than what they have been. Last year, we were appreciative that the high school administration took steps to create lower class sizes there. So we just wanted to say thank you to all in administration for taking our concerns seriously, addressing them, and striving to be within the optimal class size. We would also like the board, once again, to re-examine the class size policy and consider lowering the maximum. Thank you.
Do we have any additional speakers? Go ahead. Ms. Jordan.
Tessa Jordan. I too, as an individual, as a Port resident since 1947, as a teacher for 40 years in this district, want to thank the board for having the courage to spend a little more money so that all of the classes at the elementary school are smaller, and rather than having a situation where there are some classes that are small at the expense of other classes which are larger. So thank you so much. This has taken a long, long time, and it's going to affect in a positive way so many children who are in the elementary schools now.
Thank you. Do we have any additional speakers for general community comments? Oh. Now that Jessica's on the board, we always had at least one guaranteed taker. She's here. Okay. Okay. At this time, we're going to close community comments, and we are going to move to our first and only discussion item. Each year, the Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct must be readopted by the Board of Education. This is a state requirement. A committee of parents, students, faculty, administration, and our policy committee discuss and review the code. The suggested edits to the code this year include changes to the discrimination definition, which is in alignment with the definition in other policies, dress code, and electronic devices. I believe that Dr. Feeney and Dr. Baer are going to highlight the changes to those sections, and we can then open up to questions, that's right, actual real-time questions, as well as comments from the community during our public hearing. So at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Baer and Feeney to the hot seats over here for this presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. I want to speak a little bit about the process that brought us to these revisions. I'd like to begin with the overview of the dress code revisions. The revised dress code section was developed by the Code of Conduct Committee in the fall, this past fall, and reviewed by the Board Policy Committee in March. As you might recall, this section had not been changed when the board adopted the updated Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct in September 2024. This new updated section shifts the focus regarding the dress code from enforcement and discipline to fairness, inclusion, and educational access. The new language emphasizes clarity, dignity, and consistency while supporting a positive, respectful school environment. Some of the key changes to the dress code include a clear philosophy. It adds a value-based introduction focused on fairness, inclusion, and dignity, aligned with the updated code's emphasis on belonging and respect. There's an educational, not punitive aspect. It focuses on education over discipline. It avoids body shaming or marginalization. There are clear neutral guidelines. The language uses a must, may not wear structure with a neutral baseline to avoid bias. There are protections for identity, bans attire promoting hate or discrimination while also affirming students' rights. And there's fair enforcement. This calls for consistent, respectful, and discreet enforcement while supporting student voice. I think it's important for me to point out that the Code of Conduct Committee's discussions regarding this update to the dress code were certainly not as contentious as we had anticipated. The committee members were pleased with how readily we were able to reach a consensus on this updated version. So regarding the electronics use policy, the Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct, which was approved in September 2024, included an updated section on the student use of electronic devices. The legislation passed by the New York State Legislature in May 2025 requiring bell-to-bell bans on cell phones necessitated a review of this section of the code. Dr. Baer will discuss the process of reviewing this section as well as its implementation at Schreiber, where there's the most impact.
Certainly. So as we prepare for this implementation of New York State Ed Law 2803 this fall, I wanted to share our approach at the high school level and why I believe it really supports our students and our staff. So my recommendation is to require that we have students secure their devices in their lockers, and that would be the personal internet-enabled devices for grades 9 through 11. This is really grounded in months of collaborative work. So we engaged in meaningful conversations with our Compact Committee, which is the site-based committee where we have students, we have staff, we have parents and administrators from Schreiber. And we worked in close partnership with the Port Washington Teachers Association, really aligned what we were doing with current practices at the middle school and a little at the elementary school. They don't have nearly as many devices as our students do at Schreiber. We were looking to achieve a really cohesive and developmentally appropriate implementation across all of our levels. So from the start, we really remained focused on the intent of this legislation. So we're looking to create a distraction-free learning environment. And rather than simply complying with a policy, we're looking at this as really an opportunity to reflect on what gets in the way of learning and how to remove those barriers in a thoughtful, structured, and student-centered way. So throughout the last school year, our understanding of, as Dr. Feeney calls, bell-to-bell instruction, what that looks like has really evolved, because we were initially thinking bell-to-bell would be period 1, going from 8:05 to 9:05. However, in the legislation, we're seeing bell to bell really is defined as the start of the school day. So at Schreiber would be 8:05 a.m. until 3:05 p.m. And that really shifted the course of our conversations throughout the year. So our discussions with students, teachers, and families, we really recognize that the structure is essential, but so is some flexibility in how we are implementing this, particularly at the high school level, where the academic, social, and emotional needs are complex and varied, and students are frankly used to having access to their devices throughout the day. So by storing these devices in lockers, we can provide some clarity and some consistency while still accommodating the necessary exceptions for translation, medical needs, and emergencies. This model really allows us to enforce the purpose behind the policy without losing sight of the unique context of high school life, where we do have open campus for our juniors and our seniors. Ultimately, this plan that was recommended comes from our belief that students learn best in environments that are connected among people, focused, and free from the constant digital distraction. And that implementation is done with our community, not to our community. So we've had a lot of input from our stakeholders. And having worked on the Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct, we're looking at implementing tiered consequences instead of just having one prescribed consequence from the beginning, so it is modeled similarly. And this would be for violations of the electronics use policy, keeping in mind that there are some specific circumstances and contexts that might require flexibility. So again, this is that structure while knowing our students and how we need to respond to individual situations. There was an initial email that I had sent with the board and central office permission in June, just to make sure that our students and our families were aware. I really wanted to make sure that we didn't have families going out and buying brand new, very expensive devices, not knowing that this was coming in the fall. So there was an initial email in June, as well as an in-person meeting that I held that last week of, I will say, official school, because we were finished with classes at that point, that was live streamed and also recorded. It's available on Schreiber's YouTube page. I did leave some openness for board conversations over the summer and let families know that I would be sending the finalized version of the document in my opening day packet. And this will also be reviewed with our students at the organizational homeroom with the grade level assistant principals on the very first day of school. The reason we are looking at lockers for grades 9 through 11 and not the entire building is simply logistics. We don't have enough lockers to include our seniors. So we will have some lockers remaining should we have seniors who do want a locker, but for consistent implementation and enforcement, that's why we're looking at grades 9 through 11. We are receiving some grant funding from the state in the amount of $26,500 and looking how to best utilize that. That unfortunately would not be enough to resolve the locker issue, to have enough lockers for all of our students. So we're looking to create the best situation that will be consistent, fair, and help our students remain focused in our learning environment.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions to start with? We're going to start with the board before we go to the community. So who wants to go first? Giliar, Solani? All of the above. Just use your time to go through whatever you have on any of
I
this.
think the implied comment, though, is a good one. Like, maybe we should do one section and then the other one.
Yeah, so that we're
because
not
it'll be a little
all
more
over the place.
efficient.
Are you going to have any comments or questions? I don't either, so if you guys want to just do it however, go through your questions, it's all good.
Okay,
Okay.
Rachel, why don't we do dress code first?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my first question is sort of a global question about the newly revised policy. Does the guidance apply to all schools or only Schreiber unless otherwise noted? Because there are certain spots in the code where it says, for instance, students may wear the following coverings for religious observance or personal protective equipment at all schools. So how is this applicable?
The committee was made up of representatives from all schools. The code is intended to be applied to all schools. So this section does apply to all schools. language that may specify all schools was intended to make it clear it was all schools. What we found, there were some inconsistencies in the past.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I'm personally not sure that creates clarity rather than confusion, and it might be clearer just to note that the policy very clearly and explicitly state that everything in this policy applies to all buildings. I did have a question about the midriff guidance, which I hadn't noticed in prior policies and seems specific in ways that other aspects of the policy are not. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to that piece of the policy and why we are prescribing the extent to which one body part may be exposed while we are not necessarily looking at that for skirt length or pant length or sleeve length. It seemed very specific and out of alignment with some of the rest of the policy.
The, to cover or not to cover the midriff was a discussion point that did draw a lot of points of view among the committee members. This was a way of acknowledging that, you know, both parents and students said it's difficult to go shopping for some of our students and not have things that expose the midriff, so we can't get to the point where no midriff is yet. We also are not looking for people to come up or come to school with, you know, something that's greatly exposed. So the language may not be as precise, to your point. I think right there it's maybe not aligned with some of the other language, but it acknowledges, hey, we don't want more than half of your torso exposed, but if there's a little bit of midriff, it's okay. Let's not get carried away. We don't want to get into the point where we're measuring midriff exposure. Nobody's going to, but half seemed to be a broad enough measure. No one's going to do a measurement divided by 2 and say you've exceeded the dress code policy.
That was actually where my mind was going, was, oh no, are we going into a place where this is getting measured by half of a torso and, okay.
The code was really, the spirit of the code is to move away from that, where, you know, hold down your arms, does your skirt exceed your fingertips or whatever it might be.
Very good, thank you. Rachel, did you have any questions on the dress code?
Not really a question, but a comment. I mean, I think what you've done here is what you've managed to do with the code of conduct overall, which is completely recenter the conversation. And this dress code to me is a very pleasant, surprise is not strong enough word, a very pleasant shock, because I think it's nearly impossible to do a progressive dress code that steers clear of the major pitfalls of body shaming or some sort of ingrained sexism or ingrained racism. And this really does, and to me, threads that needle, and it's very progressive. But I think the more important part of it, and the part that I'm really struck by, and I think the part that will have the biggest impact on students, is the additional verbiage that you added about dress code enforcement. And that really makes this a very student-centered dress code, and really should be a model, I think, for every school in the country, because you have usually when dress codes talk about not wanting clothing to be a distraction to education, that's a euphemism. But that's truly what's happening here, is that we're trying to remove it from being a distraction, but saying nobody's going to be shamed. This enforcement is not going to be about being a public spectacle. And we're not so many years out from having a dress code in this district that had the word do-rag in it. So this is a real transformation, and I appreciate all your work on this.
If I could, I would like to add quickly, I appreciate those comments. As you know, when we submitted the original updated Code of Character Culture Conduct, we did not have any changes to that dress code section because we sort of ran out of time. Right? We were accelerated. I think in hindsight, that was probably the best thing for the committee. The training we did last 2 years ago. Restorative practices, collaborating together, looking at the whole code, really looking at the language and the point of view of the code and the reframing, the guiding principles. I think we were sort of ready for battle on the code of conduct, on the dress code. It was smooth. It wasn't contentious-free, but it was smooth, and the committee came to a great consensus, and that's because of the work that we had done on the code, the override of the code, and the training we did in restorative practices and the reframing of the conversation. So thank you for that.
I think you've smoothed the way along the way. I know I've had previous conversations about dress code with prior Board of Ed members who aren't sitting here. It's a contentious issue. I mean, people never feel so strongly about spaghetti straps as when they're debating a dress code. And I think this philosophy at the beginning and the enforcement at the end really frames it so that you look at those two pieces and you know what's being accomplished. And I like that you have explicit language and the may and must framework. Thank you both.
Rachel, why don't you start with devices, and then we'll go back to Jessica.
Okay, so I'm a little on the spot because in my head I'm still on dress code. I guess from my standpoint, where I come from on this actually is, especially with the dress code in mind, what I wish in my imaginary world is that this district had been able to just do the work ourselves to figure out what a distraction-free zone should look like. Because I think that there would have been a lot of positive reframing of it. And I don't think that it would look exactly like this law looks like at all. I really appreciate your work to try and make it better than it is in this, and to try and turn it into something aspirational and think about what we want to be doing as opposed to what's being imposed. In terms of your recommendations for what you're going to do, I'm going to defer to your recommendation fully. I have concerns that I stated at the last board meeting. I have a feeling that we're going to be evaluating this along the way. I'm concerned that there are a lot of unintended consequences to the way that this is drafted, particularly as to the high school. I think the middle school and the elementary school are no-brainers, right? There's no fourth grader that needs to have an electronic device that isn't a school device in their hand. But I think for the high school, and especially when we have an open campus for some of the grades, I have concerns about the kind of things that it's going to incentivize and what that does to our ability to create community here. And I would have loved to see, and I don't know, maybe we should still be doing, and maybe you will still be doing, but like, I guess my global philosophical perspective on it is that these kids are growing up with these devices and they need to learn how to live in a world where the device works for them and not that they're slaves to the device and they're missing out on things. And my concern is turning this into something that teaches them that, as opposed to teaching them, I have to stow my device in a locker at 9, and then at 3, I pick it up and I put my face right back in the device and the real world disappears again. But I know you'll be doing your best to try and turn it into a learning that's deeper than what is created. And I guess I ask that we just be keeping an eye on what we think about how it is playing out, and what the exceptions look like and whether we're really serving people. Because I'm not sure this is going to create the framework that we want it to be creating. But I don't think that that's any decisions that's being made here, right? I think the decisions that you're making are the best ones we can with the structure that we've been given.
I certainly appreciate that. And I do think that there's a component of being responsive to what we need to for the education law and what the governor is saying, while also trying to teach our students that here are the parameters that we need to. Our focus, as I have said, is really on the distraction-free learning environment. That's where we will be pouring the vast majority of our energy. And I have already said to our families, I do think it's important that when our students are going off campus, they are bringing their devices with them. So we do have some flexibility where we're able to, while still following the law that we're required to. And we'll always be reflecting. So what's working, we continue. What's not working, we find better ways.
Okay. That was all your questions, Rachel. Before I go to you, Jessica, I lied, I have one quick question. Regarding the exceptions, question, there's a section where it says, in addition, students may be permitted to use their personally owned internet-enabled devices during the school day on school grounds for specific purposes if the following criteria are met. And then the last criteria is the student uses the personally owned internet-enabled device to access the internet or authorized applications with the district's network under the terms of policy 4526. How do you see that particular, I guess, clause or exception being used in practice and not just being like, I guess, a loophole of the policy?
Absolutely. So this is one of the places where we did have a lot of discussion about who would be granting permission, how would the permission be enabled. So this is where, in collaboration with the PWTA, felt really strongly that it would be administrative approval. So that would not be on an individual teacher, particularly maybe a newer teacher versus a veteran teacher and the confidence level of each. So this would be by administrative approval, and it would be something, whether you're talking about a medical need or IEP 504, this would be in consultation with PPS and working on having more specific guidelines of what would be approved or not approved. And certainly the specific circumstances of translation, we've already been working with Ms. Arate to find devices where if a student did need the translation device more regularly than just the ones that we have for testing that are a little bit larger and harder, more cumbersome. So finding ways that we could provide that to a student so it wouldn't just be used for Google Translate throughout the day. And other needs as far as like higher level of research programming, finding ways that we could accommodate within the school setting. So we've talked through a few of those different circumstances. It would be administrative approval, ultimately trying to leave it to building administration and central administration to be consistent and fair.
So the concept is now students who may in the past have been used to like using their own MacBook, for example, in class will now need to kind of leave that in their backpack or locker and use it, and use a Chromebook unless they have like written exception from administration.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I.
And that would be worked out with the student, with the teacher. It would not just be left up to the student to walk around and say, I have permission, I can use this. And it would be under specific circumstances. So say it were, for example, SPSS or another program utilized in research that for whatever reason was not on a device in the classroom or could not be run on a Chromebook, it would be utilized in that specific circumstance, not a blank check to use that device for everything all day.
So it's not like a preference, this is my preferred device necessarily?
Correct.
Okay, that was all I just wanted to understand.
And much of that happens because on a Mac device, for example, you can do just as many things as you could on a phone, and you can access a VPN, you could use a hotspot, you could really circumvent the intention of this, which is a distraction-free learning environment. That's why we're looking at using the same model that our kids have experienced at the elementary level and the middle school level with their district-issued device.
Understood. Thank you so much, Ms. Maloney.
First, I do want to say thank you so much for your very thoughtful approach to this, for really bringing in the full complement of stakeholder input. I think being brought into your process tonight was really helpful in understanding the recommendation, so thank you for that. I have a couple of questions. Hopefully they're pretty straightforward. To what extent do you see this policy creating sort of maybe additional need for supervision, oversight during those times and places and spaces where kids are not in a classroom in sort of that focused learning experience, when they're sitting outside on the tables outside of Schreiber, or when they're, you know, in the cafeteria? What does that look like to you, and what additional demand do you expect?
That's a great question. So when I say we've been working with the PWTA, we've also had the paraprofessionals involved in this conversation because they really are the boots on the ground in the cafeteria with 800 students outside in the hallways. So we obviously would love to have additional supervision. Our focus, I'll keep saying it, is on the distraction-free learning environment, and we will absolutely do the best that we can in other environments. So having people, approach a student and say, you need to put that device away. If we are having issues with a student complying with what we need to follow, they are not supposed to be on their devices between 8:05 and 3:05 on school grounds, then building administration will be involved. So that's when we'd have a grade level assistant principal coming into the space, addressing some of those concerns. And if we have repeat offenders, those will be individual conversations with grade level AP, that student and that family, to figure out the best path forward. And sometimes that path might be, you need to drop your device off in the AP's office when you arrive at school and pick it up when you leave.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very hopeful that this will be sort of a period, a short-lived period, a relatively short-lived period of friction or pain. I keep reminding myself that there are really only 3 cohorts of students that are used to having their phones on them all the time. Any student coming out of Weber into Schreiber will not have that expectation or that experience. So, I'm looking at this and hopeful, like Ms. Gilliard, that we are going to be looking at this and constantly reflecting and seeing what's working and hopefully seeing an easing into it perhaps over time. So I'm very optimistic, cautiously optimistic. When you speak about the tiered consequence structure, will all of our district handbooks, and parent handbooks, be updated to reflect those structures or to capture this policy in some way that's applicable to each building?
Sure. So what happens with the district policy, it lives in the policy handbook, and then in our student handbook at the building level, we put it in student-friendly language. Obviously, at the high school level, we're keeping more consistent language because the students are able to really understand. But that's where we will have our tiered consequences so that students have an idea of that structure, what happens the first time, what happens the second time. We don't have 180 times spelled out, but you can kind of understand where the progression comes in. Obviously, there are some different circumstances. There's always some flexibility and context that's involved. The same conversation we have with the discipline matrix for the code. So we know our kids, we make sure we're doing what's best for them, and really learning goes into this. So if we have a student who is getting caught with their device 5 times in a week, that's not just, give me the device, let's look at what number 5 is. It's sitting down and talking about what is going on. Why are we not able to have the phone, laptop, iPad, whatever it is? Why are we not able to have that away at the times that you're supposed to, and finding a better plan? So that will be on our student handbook. Weber has already been using a practice forever, I'll say, as long as phones have been around. So this is not something that they would need to update. This is the biggest deal at the high school at this point.
Great, thank you. And final point, and this is really just a point for us as a board, there are several policies on our books that should probably be brought into alignment with this policy. So I would just sort of put that on our radar perhaps for the policy committee this year to look at, not only 4526, but also acceptable use, and a few others where this comes into play, so.
They're already on the list.
Yeah.
For other reasons.
They're on the list for other reasons, but I think there's alignment that we can work on here through the review process.
Correct.
For sure. Ms. Epstein?
So I don't have any questions. I just want to say, again, thank you. And again, this is not our mandate. This is a mandate we must comply with. It maybe isn't written the way we want it to be written, but we are trying to implement it to the best of our ability. And I think this will be a challenge for those that are used to having their phones with them. And I really don't envy anyone who's a teacher or a paraprofessional or a student or a parent that has to deal, or administrator that has to deal with the enforcement and the balance of this. And I think one of our greatest skills, and I think we as a board, I think we as a board will agree on this, is that hopefully we are there to partner with you all as well, to be in support with all of you, to help give you whatever resources you need to work with you as you continue to grow and flow with this. I've been likening this situation a lot to COVID and the masks, right? There were many differences of opinions. We were given guidance that we didn't always know the answers to during that time period, and there was a lot of frustration. The one thing I think that this board did very well is that we stayed in alignment with the guidance. We followed it, and we helped to support our teachers and staff to the best of our abilities, and I hope that we can all do that again. I think we all want to do that. I think that's what you hear from all of us here, and even from those that are absent. So anything that you see that you need, we hope to hear back from you guys, and look forward to seeing how this rolls out and partnering with you in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you guys to stay there because we're going to go to our community hearing. But before we do that, I want to just note for the board that the code of CCC, as it was just presented to us, is not in alignment with policy 5695, the way it was passed at our last board meeting. So that was specifically, there's language about where the devices can be stored, which is as it relates to backpacks and or lockers and or backpacks. So I want to just note for the board that I didn't hear anybody objecting to how it was presented in the code of CCC, which means that when we go to vote on that later this evening, we will also be adding in voting to change the policy 5144 to include the language either backpacks and or lockers and or backpacks. And I want to just ask the trustees who are,
No, we're going to vote to have.
I'm sorry, 5695, I'll read it incorrectly later, but I want to just ask the trustees if they have a preference now, after we've heard this, if I will read it in as backpacks and or lockers and or backpacks.
It actually just says backpacks and lockers.
Yeah, sorry, backpacks and lockers. And we're going to stick with backpacks and lockers, even based on the conversations we had with council who had suggested it might be better to be lockers and backpacks. So I wanted to just raise that to the trustees who are present to see how we want to proceed. I don't have a strong preference.
Sorry, are you asking for a preference on whether we are voting on it or
No,
what
we're gonna have
order
to
we're
vote on
voting
it.
on?
It's, the question is, do we want to use backpacks and lockers or lockers and backpacks? I would say that my suggestion would be that since the code of CCC says backpacks and lockers, we should just leave it that way, unless anyone disagrees. So that's how I'll read it in later. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that it should be in alignment with the CCC and upon the recommendation of our administrators who clearly have a perspective, so I would
Okay.
defer to them.
Perfect. So just to anyone in the community who's noticing that this is not in alignment with that policy, and we will correct that later this evening when we vote in the two policies. So with that, we're going to move to our public hearing. I want to give the opportunity for the community to speak on this policy, as we must do each year, starting with Regina McLean.
Hi, thank you. I'm speaking to address the proposed change specifically to the cell phone or internet. No, you can't hear me? It is on. Okay, I'll do my Regina voice. Yeah, so I'm speaking to specifically the cell phone or internet enabled device portion of the Code of Conduct. I just want to mention that the Port Washington Teachers Association believes that this law has the potential to be greatly beneficial to our students and to improving the climate in our schools. And why do we believe that? Well, for starters, we know that our students are distracted and this needs to change. We also know in districts where they have already implemented a no cell phone or no internet enabled devices policy, it has been very successful. I've spoken with colleagues in other districts where they've already implemented the policy, and they have all reported what a transformative experience it has been. We have attended conferences about disconnecting students from cell phones, and students there have reported that the new policy in their school has changed their lives for the better. They report engaging in class more and connecting with their teachers and their classmates more. When students don't have their phones in their hands while walking to class, they interact with others in the hallway. When students don't have their phone in a classroom, their phone, which is a highly addictive device, when they have it in their backpack, they can't focus their attention on the lessons and activities in class. So we know how addictive these devices are, which is why we need the implementation of this new policy and new law to be successful. We acknowledge that this is going to be a huge change for Schreiber, but we want to point out that it's just a continuation of what's been going on at Weber successfully for many years. So in order to create a similarly successful implementation at Schreiber, we need your support so that we can do this. And I already sense that you're going to be approving this change in language in the Code of Conduct and change the policy, and so we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
I'm Rita DeLucia, the co-president of the Port Washington Paraprofessional Association. I represent over 200 members that consist of teaching assistants, educational assistants, monitors, and information technology aides. First, I'd like to welcome Dr. Passy and looking forward to working with you. As a bargaining unit, we did, like Dr. Baer said, sat in on some of the meetings, and we fully agree with how it was presented tonight. And we just want to thank Dr. Baer and Dr. Feeney and their committee for all their hard work, and hopefully the board to accept the proposal as presented. Thank you.
Pam Perley.
Andrew Vanella, First Vice President of the PWTA. I'd like to speak to how the use of lockers came to be the preferred solution to this law for the bargaining units in the school. As teachers, we can tell you how cell phones and other internet-connected devices have negatively impacted academics in general and our high school students in particular. We are very interested in helping effectively solve this issue. So first, the PWTA surveyed its members. We had a tremendous response. In fact, the idea to use lockers for grades 9 through 11 came from that survey. Additionally, we are conscious of the money issue that exists everywhere, and we were looking for something cost-free to the district that would also satisfy the desire among teachers and other bargaining units to get internet-connected devices out of the classroom and other common areas. From there, we worked with building administration. Building administration and the Schreiber building reps had meetings where we worked collaboratively to come up with the policy. So, why are lockers a superior policy to backpacks only? The bargaining units believe that the students are addicted to their phones and other internet-enabled devices. We don't mean this as a criticism. As research has repeatedly shown, those devices are designed to be addictive. And many adults, frankly, are addicted to their internet-enabled devices as well. We believe that because of that addiction, backpacks only is a recipe for confrontation in the classroom, confrontation in the library, and confrontation in the cafeteria, as addicted students are distracted by the knowledge that their phones are oh so close and within reach. To that effect, there are even studies that show that distraction is greatly increased by the mere knowledge that the cell phone is close by. So, finally, cell phones in lockers, as Ms. McLean stated, is currently the policy in Weber as well. Students entering Schreiber are already familiar and accepting of the policy. The culture in Schreiber will quickly come to reflect the culture that was entrenched in the students at Weber. Cell phones and lockers will be accepted by the student body. Thus, it was a surprise to us when the board removed the lockers language at the last meeting. Our goal is to always work in a collaborative way, and as it seems to be going this way at the meeting, we're very happy that lockers seem to be, it's going to be reinserted in the language. Thank you.
Paredes. I'm a parent of 4 kids in the district, elementary and secondary. And as was mentioned when this meeting first started, there's a legal obligation to review this policy every year. And as you may recall, when the committee was formed at the board's direction, the board specifically charged the administration with adding 2 parents, one at elementary and one at secondary. So the administration didn't do that. They added 2 secondary parents. I guess the thinking was that they were near to elementary. But as we review this policy year in and year out, we are leaving the elementary parent voice further and further behind by having parents on the committee that have older kids further removed from the elementary experience. So at this point, I would like to implore the board and the administration to reconsider and add an elementary parent, because elementary parents do have a valuable perspective on the code of conduct. And while most of the issues probably do end up happening at the secondary level, there are still code of conduct issues that do come up at the elementary, and without that voice, as the years go on, your 2 parent members are going to be beyond elementary by many years. And issues really are moving very quickly in the world today, and being further removed from what's going on in elementary school, I think, is not giving the perspective of the elementary school parent. So my request is to reconsider having only secondary parents on the committee. The initial request of the board was to include an elementary parent voice. That's not the case at the moment. So to the extent that that can be added, and add a 3rd parent maybe, or have a rolling sort of admission type thing of the parent voice on the committee, I think that would be a good thing to consider.
Thank you. Since we're allowed to respond in this form, it's a valid point, and I think we'll definitely, when we discuss that, raise that point. Thank you. So I do have a Pam Perley on here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
My name is Pam Crewley. I'm a teacher's assistant in special ed department here at Schreiber. I'm also a mother of a rising senior at Manhasset High School, whose plan is mirroring our plan as a TA. I can confidently say that these phones are a major distraction and disruption in this classroom. These kids often walk around with their AirPods in their ears, completely isolated from the world around them. This isolation is not only affecting their their social skills, but also hindering their academic progress. If given the choice, these children will constantly check their backpacks if they are allowed to put it in the backpack or the lockers. They will go into the bathrooms with their phones. They will check their phones, their texts, their social medias. They'll even make TikToks in the bathroom during these breaks. This behavior inevitably falls on the shoulders of the teachers and the support staff, who must interrupt the class to remind the students that phones are not allowed. I'm working summer school right now, and we've been preparing the students for the cell phone law. However, they're allowed in between periods to get their phone out of their pocket, and immediately they're on it. But but during class, we have it has led to arguments, complaints, disrespectful behavior among some of the students, not understanding why they can't have it on them. As a parent, I don't want my child's education to be compromised by these phones, and I'm sure many parents will agree with me. We need support from all stakeholders, including teachers, administration, and parents. I believe implementing the original plan of having the 9th to 11th graders locking their phones in their locker from bell in the morning to bell in the afternoon, and enforcing it consistently is the best way to address this issue. By providing structure, rules, and consequences for not following the law, we can help these students succeed academically and socially. Let's work together as one to ensure that the cell phone law is enforced effectively. I would like to add that it is now a law, so the kids need and have to follow the law.
Are there any additional speakers? Come on down, George.
Good evening. You guys are gonna get better phone and microphones.
It's working.
Okay. First of all, I want to welcome Dr. Passy on behalf of the concerned parents of Port Washington, my wife, Rose, Borda, Esther Kong, and Charlie Shi. We are looking forward to a wonderful school year and working with you on the Board of Education. I have two questions, but before that, you know, the train left the station already a long time ago, and you hear it whistling miles away. So, okay, we know why this law was passed. It's just a political ploy to gain whatever. But okay. Are the adults, the parents, going to be behaving in such a way to show their kids how they should be behaving in school, being an example to them, or the adults everywhere? Because that's what we should do, right? As adults, we should try to let the students emulate our behaviors, not just be hypocritical and say, this is good for you, but this is but not for us. So, I understand that these new devices are addictive. I mean, that has been proven over and over. More addictive are these companies that are promoting in the protocols or algorithms, you know, the addiction of, even for adults. You know, it reminds me when the printing press came about, it really did a tremendous disservice to the Catholic Church. You know the consequences. But okay, we are quite a few centuries away from that. I think in the application of the violation or whatever, it is more important to be not arbitrary, better than being consistent or fair. Arbitrary and capricious are the two key words that rule education in the state of New York. I do have two questions. This will not apply to seniors. That is my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And number two, will this apply to everyone in the school system?
Would our esteemed committee chairs address those questions? Could we lower the volume a little bit while they're speaking? Thanks.
So this will apply to all students, including our seniors. It's just that we don't have enough lockers for the seniors to be putting the devices in their lockers, but they still would not be, under this law, would not be able to use their devices from 8:05 to 3:05. The focus of this has really been at Schreiber because we are the ones who have allowed personal internet-enabled devices. However, it's consistent at the middle school and all of the elementaries because they are not using phones, watches, AirPods, MacBooks, iPads, unless it is issued by the district and specifically for instructional use at the direction of the teacher. Does that answer both of your questions?
I guess, yeah, it only applies to the students. So any adult in the building will be able to use their phones and devices or whatever they have.
So one of the conversations that we've had as the adults, whether we're talking about the building reps or the paraprofessionals, is how are we modeling this for students?
Or the parents walking in the hallways. Anyone, any adult, the superintendent.
I don't think that I can take the other adults.
He still has a flip phone.
Oh, okay.
So we have talked about what modeling as the adults in the building would look like, and we could certainly have conversations with our visitors upon entry of making sure that they are modeling responsible device usage. There are some other factors that we are considering like the multi-factor verification when you're logging into district accounts. You do need a device available, so those are some of the conversations we're having. But as far as even Dr. Bear walking down the hallway with a phone and trying to answer and do all the things, I'm even reflecting on how I can better model this for our students because I can imagine how they would feel seeing me on my device.
Excellent, of course. I'm as teachers, we always have to be the first ones instructing students how behavior should be followed. How will it apply to seniors at the high school?
The policy applies the same way to seniors. The only difference with seniors is they will be allowed to store them in their backpacks because we do not have sufficient storage in lockers for the seniors. If we had sufficient lockers for our seniors, it would be a very similar process for those students. So,
The law applies to everyone.
and once again, just to reiterate, this is while on school campus. So if a senior has off-campus privileges, when they leave the campus, they can have their device with them and use it. That's important for emergency situations, certainly when they're off campus.
Okay, I hope that this works. This is really a solution in search of a problem. Okay, I can see a lot of pitfalls. And I know this is not up to you, this was mandated, but you know, some of the school districts in New York State are going like, okay, yeah, they are doing what they need to do for their own communities. And what the state says, okay, we'll follow the law up to the extent that we need to, but not any further. Thank you, and Dr. Pazzi, have a wonderful beginning.
Thank you. Do we have any additional community members who wish to speak on the?
Hi, Jessica Feingold. Just a quick question that we were just discussing. So I know that previously, will seniors be able to request a locker if they want one, or will there now not be enough lockers because freshmen through juniors, are they going to be required to get a locker? I don't know how many lockers are available and if this changes any of the current policy as far as that.
As far as the required lockers, 9th, 10th, and 11th, every single student will be signed an individual locker. We will have enough lockers for seniors who do request. So if we have a student who does like to put their belongings in a locker, they'll absolutely be able to do so. They just get it through their grade level assistant principal the same way they did last year.
Okay. Do we have any more speakers, question askers, commenters? Nope. Okay. We are going to close the forum at this time, and thank you very much, Drs. Bear and Feeney, for that. Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following minutes: June 18th, 2025 Audit Committee meeting minutes, June 20th, 2025 BOE Curriculum Committee meeting minutes, June 26th, 2025 BOE Executive Session minutes, July 8th, 2025 BOE Reorganization and BOE meeting minutes, and July 25th, 2025 BOE Executive Session minutes. Ms. Gilliard, do I have a second? See that hand? All in favor? 4-0. Once again, the minutes are approved. Our committees have not yet met, but from the agenda and on the district calendar, you can see the next scheduled meeting dates starting in September. I won't read them because they are published in many places. We are now at our consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda? No? Fantastic. Motion to approve items 13.1.1 through 13.6.2A. Ms. Milani, is there a second? Okay, all in favor? 4-0. Congratulations to Dr. Shields on your new role as Deputy Superintendent. Well deserved. We would like to thank the following for their donations: the SUSA HSA for playground equipment, the Ed Foundation for grants for 25-26 school year, and balance for the 24-25 grants, NICER for staff appreciation, PTS General Construction for staff appreciation. Thank you to all the donors, but a special thank you to the Ed Foundation for their generosity by supporting so many outstanding programs created by our staff. And I also would like to note that deep in this agenda, you will note that Dave Miller will be back for a brief encore tour as an AP. Okay. Policy. So I'm going to first make a motion to revise policy 5695. I'm going to do.
And adopt, just do both.
Sure, okay. To adopt, I'm gonna start again. I'd like to make a motion to adopt and revise policy 5695, student and personal electronic devices to mirror 5144, code of conduct, which we're about to approve. We will be adding the language backpacks and or lockers.
Just or.
Yeah, or lockers. Do I have a second? Ms. Gilliar, I know you want to second that one. All in favor? 4-0. Policy 5695, policy, yes, 5695 is revised. I would like to make and adopted, well, the revision is adopted. I would further like to make a motion to adopt policy 5144.1, the Code of Character, Culture, and Conduct. Do we have a second? Ms. Milwani, all in favor? 4-0. The policy is adopted but not revised. At this time, we have no old business, so little deja vu here. We're going to go right back for another opportunity for the community to be heard. If we have any speakers on any further topics. Nothing else, George? Okay. Okay, we're going to close community comments, and we're not going to recess to executive session, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 19th at 10 a.m. The purpose of this meeting is strictly to approve a consent agenda regarding new hires and whatever other contracts come up, and then we will resume our normal meeting format on September 9th at the normal time. Do I have a second for the motion? Ms. Epstein, all in favor? 4-0, we are adjourned. Everyone enjoy what's left of your evening, since you have one now.